Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 16 of the Good People, Bad Intentions podcast. And today I have a special guest. I have Simon from the Fit2Box YouTube channel. Like everybody that gets into boxing, one of the first questions that you might have is what type of boxing gloves, shoes, boxing equipment you should get. There's so many different options, and what Simon does is he has a YouTube channel where he reviews various gloves, shoes, headgear, groin guards, etc. And then later on he also compares them. Simon is one of the biggest reviewers when it comes to boxing equipment on YouTube, and one thing that I really like is that he has a website, the Fit2Box and what you'll find in that website is not only all of the equipment that he has reviewed, but he also has glove price divisions. With that, he has compared all of the different gloves and how much they cost, and it allows the person looking to see what the best value is for their money depending on what their budget is. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Simon. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Good People, Bad Intentions podcast. And today I have a really special guest. I have Simon from the Fit2Box YouTube channel as a guest. Simon, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So we were just having a little bit of a conversation behind the scenes, Simon, and we were talking about a lot of stuff. Like, for example, I was talking about how there's somebody that saw that I was going to have you as a guest, Matt Johnson. He was a previous guest. He's in his 40s. He's just starting boxing up again. And like a lot of boxers or people getting into boxing, they go on YouTube and they try to find the best boxing equipment to use. And more often than not, your video is one of the top results for YouTube videos. And he was kind of like, man, like, this is crazy. You're having him on and kind of a little starstruck. So can you talk a little bit about what it's like, being kind of the definitive guy that's, and I know it's debatable. Like, people can say, oh, I'm the boxing reviewer, but what is it like to be kind of like the boxing reviewer on YouTube?
Well, it's very kind of used to say there is a few of us doing it. Mm-hmm. There's also, the boxing equipment community is growing, and I do message the other guys, and they message me, and it's a nice community in that we are a small dark corner of YouTube. I've been doing this 6 years, and I've got 20,000 subscribers. It's not massive. But I understand that people that are in that sort of niche, they are looking for advice when it comes to boxing equipment. And that was really why I started it in the first place, because I'm a boxing coach, I'm an amateur boxing coach. And so many times I would have people that would come into the gym and they'd spent 20 or 30 pounds, 40 pounds on gear that was absolutely rubbish. And to be honest, because I like my gear and I love my gear, it was breaking my heart to see these people waste their money. So, I mean, the YouTube sort of channel didn't really start out being a YouTube channel in the first instance. I worked in a bank for 25 years. And it was a very stressful environment, and towards the end, I really didn't want to be there. And then what happened was I got quite a large credit card bill, and I've got some nice gloves, and I was going to sell the nice gloves. And so I thought, to have a bit of a record of these nice gloves before I sold them to pay off my credit card bill, I'd do some videos. I had one holiday from the bank, and I did these videos, which didn't show my head, which is the style that I used to do when I first started. And I'll come on to why I changed that. So I did these videos, and they just stayed on this iPad for probably a year. I had no intention of them going anywhere apart from just to remind me that I had some nice gloves and I no longer had them. Then I thought I'd left the bank, and I just decided, well, I'll just put these videos online onto YouTube. And that's what I did. And, they were dead sort of raw. The first videos that I did are still on there. And then they're not even long, they're not detailed. There's nothing to them really. It really was me just talking to the camera, and people started to comment. And can you do more of this? Can you review this glove? Can you review this head guard? Whatever it was, they started to ask me for more. And of course, as the subscribers started growing, I was like absolutely chuffed. I mean, I can remember being totally chuffed at getting 100 subscribers. I was over the moon that 100 people wanted to watch my videos. I also didn't realise that it wouldn't be just people around Wolverhampton and Telford that would be watching me. I never dreamed that people all over the world would start to watch me on the video. So that was a bit of a shock. But my intention when I started the channel, and my intention's still the same today, is I want to help people get better boxing equipment. Now, it's impossible for me to pick the best equipment for everyone, because one, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", I'm 100 kg. I've got different size hands. I've got a different size head. It's very difficult for me to pick the perfect equipment for everyone. So my videos really are a showcase of what the equipment is and my personal view. Now, I'm quite a gregarious guy. I'm quite sort of in your face. And I might like something that's really sort of, out there that somebody else wouldn't even think about wearing. But I like that. And somebody who's a little bit more sort of sedate and not as sort of in your face as me, they're never going to like exactly the same as me. And so I try and sort of put it out there, almost like this is what it is. Have a good look round. Listen to me, obviously. Take what you like, but bin what you don't like. Because, as I say, I can't pick the perfect gear for everyone. And I wouldn't be so arrogant as to say that I could. And I think some people do think that I can pick the perfect thing for everyone. And that's a very difficult thing, with so many different types of boxers and people out there. So hopefully my reviews give a good overview of the gear, and also I'm getting my opinion across. All I will say is I've reviewed and seen a tremendous amount. So my opinion is based on me seeing the very best and the very worst. So most people haven't seen that. I quite often will get, so say if somebody says to me, how can you say fly gloves are better than winning? Well, I'll go back to them and I'll say, have you tried fly? And they'll say no. And it's like, well, how can you say that I'm wrong when you haven't even tried it? I mean, I may well be wrong, but it's kind of the thing to say, they're outraged, but they don't actually know the full picture. So yeah, when you're starting a YouTube channel or a podcast, my intention was never to be famous. I know we were talking about earlier. I mean, this is not fame. This is just like a little. What I do like is when I go to a boxing show, an amateur boxing show, and somebody will come up to me and they'll say, I bought these boots because of your review and I really love them. And that's pretty much why I started the channel and why I put so much time into it. As you know, with YouTube, you do get paid for views, but let me tell you, it's so small at a level of me. It's not like if I got millions and millions of subscribers, yeah, you're going to be earning good money from YouTube. But if you've got a small channel like mine, sub, 20,000, well, I'm just above 20,000 subscribers now, but, you're not going to be able to give up your job on the basis of YouTube advertising. I don't get paid by anyone, and I never have done. So it is a real passion. If I was to sort of work out with all the preparation that I do, all the testing that I do, all the filming, all the editing, everything that I put into each video, I probably would be on about 50 pence an hour, because there's so much that goes into it. And this is where it's very easy for people to say, well, you're saying that because you're paid. Well, I'm not paid. If you're going to count YouTube as being paid, then 50 pence an hour is not really going to, he's taking the buy me a Lamborghini. And so I don't think people understand that the passion that you have to have. Bear in mind, I've been on 6 years. There's been people that's been on double the amount of time to me in the boxing equipment community. and they're churning out these videos to help people. And I think sometimes it's very easy to think, oh, you know, they're on YouTube, people are recognizing people, they must be doing it for the money, they must be taking sort of money from companies. And any company out there can sort of come out at any time and say, oh yeah, I paid him for a review. Well, nobody's going to do that, because I've never had a single penny from any company. I think what happens is, when I first started the channel, I didn't even show my face in the very first ones. And the only reason, that's again, because I didn't want to be famous, I didn't want to be recognized. I was just doing it because I wanted people to look at the gloves and the equipment. So I thought that if my face was on there, people would be more distracted by the person than the equipment. And that was the reason why I did it originally, no head. I had a couple of people that started copying my style of videos. Obviously, they didn't copy the accent. Very difficult to copy.
That's kind of hard.
But they started to copy the style that I was doing, and so I was like, right, I'm going to have to come out with the face. Probably damage my subscribers, but
No.
I had to come out with that, and also it was getting a little bit difficult because I wanted to show the testing. Because again, because I wasn't showing my face, very difficult to show testing if you're not showing your face. So I wanted to show the testing, which a lot of the reviewers weren't doing. So I knew at some point there was going to have to be a reveal of the face. And also, I wanted to do head guard reviews. And to do a head guard review properly, you've got to put the head guard on. So it was kind of, that was what changed me from, I was quite happy that nobody could see my face and it was just my voice, and I was concentrating on the equipment. So that was kind of forced, because if the channel was going to grow, I had to sort of do that. Also at the start, what I just started to do was, because I was reviewing gear that I loved, I kind of, in my head, I was thinking, anything that appears on the channel, I want that to be a Fit2Box seal of approval. If they get on the channel, they've done well. If they don't get on the channel, that's kind of telling the reviewers that I don't rate them. But unfortunately, that was construed as Simon's always positive. And it's like, so you've missed the point there, because I was trying to create a sort of almost like a prestige to get on the channel. But then people, unfortunately, some people do want a bit of negativity. And let's be honest, if I did a really negative channel where I was like slating loads of gear, I'd probably have 100,000 subscribers by now. Because people do love that bit of negativity. So yeah, I mean, I love doing the channel. Even now, it's hard to fit in because I do boxing one-to-ones for people. Also very heavily involved in the amateur side of the club. And sometimes it's hard when you're trying to do all the testing and stuff, but I absolutely love doing it. And I love doing it for those moments when people will come up and say, I watched your video, it was really good, and I've been able to buy better gear because of you, and that's why I do it. Now, if down the line my channel does get big, which obviously that would be amazing. I'm not going to say that wouldn't be a great thing, it would. But it's, yeah, it's kind of 6 years I've been on now. That's a bit of a slow burn for somebody that wants to get rich quick.
True. And I really appreciate you kind of sharing kind of the beginning of your channel, you know, how the style has kind of changed over the years. And let's say I want to say something about just the format. I mean, the format from beginning to end is just very professional. That's one thing that I've always noticed from all your videos. And yeah, you can say, you know, if anybody says your videos are very positive, I mean, you're not ever making a negative or dark shadow over anything. You're always, you know, really keeping the spirit of boxing, keeping the spirit of competition in all your videos. And I really like, you know, like when you're doing like a head-to-head between two different gloves or two different head guards, you kind of have the 12-round system. I think that is very innovative as far as, you know, a process of reviewing, because really you're trying to give almost like numbers or stats to explain your reasoning for why you prefer something versus just saying, oh, I just like this glove more. You know, you're
When I started YouTube boxing equipment reviewing, it isn't like it is now. I mean, now, you know, I did start like quite a few different things that wasn't happening before, and that's been copied, and that's fair enough, because, you know, if something is really good, people copy, and I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
It can be frustrating sometimes, but ultimately, if I was rubbish, people wouldn't be copying. So there is a kind of a compliment in there. The thing with when I started 6 years ago, you know, a lot of the stuff that is sort of accepted now that is going to be in a video wasn't in the videos then. So I've sort of over time improved and built it and done the head-to-heads and doing the scores. I mean, even doing the ratings cards, you know, that causes problems because every single brand wants to be the Fit2Box champion at their price. And I can't make every single glove the Fit2Box champion because there's only one in each division, and that's on my website. Where on my website, literally, I list in order the gloves at all the different prices, and I put them into my price divisions. And the way I do that, it literally is my favourite gloves. So if I had 10 gloves and I had to put them in order, and I put them in order, that would be the order that it comes on my website, from the champion, number one contender, number two contender, number three, all the way down. Again, you know, the caveat to that is my opinion, and hopefully, so if somebody looks at the champion and said, oh, well, I don't like the look of that glove, and they look down to the number one, number two, number three contender, and they go, oh, actually, the one that's at number four, I really like that. I think from what I've said, they can see from the scoring that I do rate that glove. It's not my favourite, but it's still ranking high, and they can sort of go and order that glove with confidence that it's a good or a great or a really superb glove just on that. And again, that's kind of what I want to do. I want them to make the decision for themselves. And it seems to work. I mean, the subscribers sort of grew steadily, and I was really pleased with how it was. I think with anything, like with your podcast, which I think consistency, you know, I've seen a lot of reviewers over the years that perhaps did 5, 6 really good videos to start off, and then they sort of fall by the wayside. And what I'm very good at is that consistency. And that's no different from boxers that come into the gym. We've got boxers that have been super talented, but have got no consistency. So they're never going to do anything. We've got people that are not as talented, that are super consistent. And that hard work and dedication, as you know, those little improvements over time means that they actually achieve more than the person that was more naturally talented. So I just, as long as people enjoy it, I enjoy doing it. And again, you'll have this as your sort of podcast grows. Not everyone's going to like you, and it's unrealistic to think that everyone's going to like you, because, you know, we've all had people that we've met in the pub who you think, I don't really like his vibe. He might be a really lovely guy, but something doesn't click. And conversely, you meet somebody else and you get on so well, and you think, this guy's a really lovely guy, I'd like to spend some more time with him, or this girl's a really lovely girl. And so sometimes you click with people in real life, sometimes you don't click. And it's exactly the same on social media. Some people are just not going to like you. You haven't done anything, they just don't like you.
I just wanted to say, you know, when I had Filippo Donardo on here, and I had mentioned your channel, and that's kind of how we linked up. I really want to appreciate that tidbit of advice that you gave me early on about the consistency, because every time that I've been working on this podcast, I've been thinking about what you said about how you got to try to make sure that you're always putting out interesting podcasts, because it's not just one podcast or one episode or one video that's going to change you. You got to put in, you know, the work, just like you said with boxing. You got to be consistent and not just the talented person.
100%. People think that they're going to upload one video on YouTube, and then they're going to wake up in the morning and they've had 30 million views and they're an overnight success. It doesn't generally, it doesn't happen like that. It hasn't happened like that for me. It's not happened for the other reviewers on YouTube who do boxing equipment reviews either. Some of them, as I say, have been on double the amount of time that I've been on. So, you know, I think it's getting a lot more traction. I think that the YouTube boxers, that helps, because you've got people, YouTube boxers, that have got their own fans, and whatever people think about the standard of YouTube boxers, it does bring eyes to the sport. Once those people have been attracted to the sport of boxing, which is the best sport in the world, you know, then they might think, right, I'm a bit more serious now. I'm going to get me some gloves. And that's when they start to see people like me. And, you know, you always, the bigger you get, at first, I found that the feedback was super positive. And then occasionally you are going to get a troll that comes in. You cannot avoid them. It's best to try and, in my opinion, best to try and sort of get them out of the community, because my community is really, really positive. You know, they're all looking to help each other, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, and it's a proper boxing community. So, you know, you can grow too quick sometimes, I think.
Yeah, and I wanted, this is kind of within the lens of reviewing and your process, and this is something that's in my head, specifically with people from the UK, because I used to watch, this is a completely different maybe topic, but computer like hardware reviews on YouTube. There's a guy from the UK named Tiny Tom Logan. He's got Overclocked 3D. He has a review channel where he has like all this different computer hardware. And what I've kind of realized is, in the UK, and maybe it's more so than any country, there are a lot of good reviewers. And I'm thinking also to something as maybe trivial or whatnot as Top Gear and the reviews that Top Gear does for cars. And I think there's many examples. Is there some reviewers that, you know, maybe in different industries or whatnot have kind of influenced you or inspired your process?
I do like cars. I know nothing about cars, as in I couldn't open the bonnet and start working on a car. I could just about put diesel in my car. But, you know, I do like supercars. I do like nice cars. And then getting back to sort of Filippo, you know, Filippo Donardo, he does a boutique Italian-made boxing glove that is currently £1,400. And it would be very easy to turn around and say, that's too expensive. But what's too expensive for some people is not too expensive for other people. So again, I do try and be balanced in that view, because, you know, like, people have Lamborghinis, people have Ferraris. I'd love a Lamborghini, I'd love a Ferrari. I haven't got one. And I'd struggle to get it past the wife to say, you know, I'm going to spend 100 grand on that car. But that's not to say I don't like the car or I don't appreciate the quality or the styling that is there. And so Donardo, he gets a lot of, I'm going to say abuse. He does get abuse because there's a lot of people out there that are looking to take him down. And he is a very, do you have Marmite over there?
Marmite.
It might be like, it's like this spread. Basically,
oh, it's like, is it like Vegemite, but like,
yeah, I think it is. I think it is.
Marmalade spread.
It's called Marmite, and I hate it, but some people absolutely love it. And it's one of those things. It tastes so odd that some people absolutely love it and some people hate it. And I do think that Donardo is a Marmite person. And maybe I am as well. I don't know. You know, ultimately, as I say, you're not going to please every single person. And to think to yourself that everyone in the world is going to love your YouTube channel or love your podcast is extremely naive, because there is jealous people out there as well that want to take you down. So it is what it is. You've got to, it's great how much positivity I get through the channel. And you've got to hold on to that, because people, you know, they don't have to write down nice things to you. And they go out of their way to send you a message, which is a really nice message. And I think you have to balance the 99% of those people with the 1% that really is either jealous or don't see why you're doing what you're doing. And it's a shame that they can't see it. But ultimately, you know, I worked in a bank for 25 years. I know, because I saw a lot of rich people who was unhappy. So I know that money doesn't equal happiness. And I get my happiness from helping people. And I'm no different from any amateur boxing coach out there who voluntarily gives up their time to help not only great boxers, because there is a few that come through, and now that's when you really get excited, but the kids that are having problems, the young kids that are not very good at boxing, the ones that you spend your time with. And you're not there voluntary when you could be with your wife and kids. You're not there because you're a selfish person. You're actually a very giving person. And I would say the majority of boxing coaches are going to be that type of people. Yeah, we all like our boxers to win, and it's great. But ultimately, you know, you're driving up and down the country. Sometimes you don't get the decision. You're having to deal with kids that come to the club that don't really want to be at the club because their dad wants them to box, but they don't really want to box. They'd rather be drawing or painting. And so, you know, to give up your time to do that, my channel is just an extension of that, really. What I'm doing in my mind is I'm paying into my emotional bank account. Okay. And what I mean by that is a few years ago, my son, who was 11 at the time, and he's now 17, he had a brain tumor, a big brain tumor. And we were so lucky. He had it taken out at Birmingham Children's Hospital, and he is totally fine. But he could have died. He could have been disabled. And I am grateful every day for the outcome of that. Now, I've been a good guy for all my life. And I do think that all that goodness that I've been given over the years helped me when I needed to cash in to save my son. And some people say, well, that's complete nonsense. In my head, I'm quite happy that I hadn't been bad. I hadn't been horrible to people. I wasn't an evil person. I was quite happy that my balance in my good bank account was enough to cash in to save my son's life. And I really do believe that being nice to people is just a wonderful thing.
I'm really glad to hear that everything's all right with your son, because I can't imagine kind of the feelings that you were going through.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, because everybody thinks that sort of thing is going to happen to someone else. Everybody does. So I was going through life and I was thinking, well, that person's got cancer and that person's got a brain tumor and that person's got this and that person's got that. And nothing was hitting me or my family. And so in that situation, you kind of think, well, it happens to someone else. And it's a hell of a shock when it happens to you, because then you're like, oh my God, well, these people you see on the telly, and you do feel sorry for them, but you never think it's going to come into your sphere. And when it does, it's not only is it like horrifying, but it changes your life forever. I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I could be on here now talking about my son that had died. I'm very, very lucky. He's totally fine. He's super intellectual. He's a clever guy. It's not affected him in any way. And we were very, very lucky. And I know some people are not. But at the end of the day, you know, and boxing does this, and you're sort of good people, bad intentions. I mean, that is perfect when it comes to boxing, because I'm a nice guy. But when I'm sparring, I want to hurt somebody, you know, and with sparring, obviously sparring is about training. But if I'm in a hard spar with somebody and they're trying to give it to me and I'm trying to give it to them, I do want to cause blows that it's going to hurt them and stop them or slow them down. And when we get out of the ring, we're friends. And actually, some of the best friends that I've got are from punching each other in the head. It is an amazing thing. You build such an affinity and such a close bond with people that you spar with or even train with, where you having to go through the same trials and tribulations as somebody who's doing press-ups next to you.
I really appreciate that you're understanding the whole message along the podcast and the brand and everything, because that's 100% my experience too. Like I said, when I kind of explained the first episode or whatnot, I was a huge Mike Tyson fan. Customato punching or punching with bad intentions, trying to go through the target. But yeah,
Yeah,
I understood, like, from my experience with boxing. I mean, everybody that you're going into the gym, they're all nice people. I mean, yeah, you might have a little bit of spits and spats when you're in the ring, but what after you get out and after, you possibly have a concussion, everything is hunky dory, everything's good, and we all respect and love each other, and we try to,
yeah,
help. We tell the person that's punching us in the face how to do it better. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah, yeah,
like that's the understanding I've had, and I'm so glad that there's so many people that have been coming across the podcast that are fighters, that are seeing kind of the message. Because I'll be honest with you, when I first started the brand and the message, I went to a few people that didn't box, and I said, "What did you think about it?" And they're like, honestly, but it's the boxers, it's the fighters, it's any
yeah,
martial artists. They understand that.
yeah. And I've had boxers that haven't got in the ring spite. And it has to come, the winning mentality, it has to come from either spite or I'm super competitive. So a lot of it comes from the fact that I'm super competitive. But it has to come from somewhere you are punching someone in the head and body. If you're too nice in the ring, then you're going to get beat. So there has to be something there. I mean, in our gym, we haven't got anybody that is an idiot in our gym. They're all great people. We've got some cracking boxers. They all sort of bounce off each other. There's almost like this hierarchy rank, as you know, with the best boxers and the ones that go down, the ones that are climbing up, the ones that are going down, the ones that are at the top. And it is great. It is superb. And boxing clubs, I mean, people talk about inclusion. Boxing clubs have been inclusive for years and years and years. I mean, there is no other place where people of different races and religions have mixed without any problems than boxing gyms over the years. And it upsets me a little bit when people miss the point of boxing and they just look at it and think it's violence, because it is a brutal sport, but it's also a beautiful sport. And there's so much that people, even if they don't get to box, so much that they can gain from the sport, whether it's physical fitness, whether it's a better mental attitude, whether it's friends. The whole thing is just beautiful. And when people sort of see it and say, "Oh, I don't like boxing, it's violence," it's like, it's not fighting outside a kebab shop. It's a beautiful sport. And I think those people that get in and think that it's just about punching hard, as you know, it's not about that. There's so much. You can have somebody that's punching hard, but if the other person's got better footwork, that person can't even land a punch.
And I wanted to ask you, because you're the first person I've had as a guest from the UK. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of boxing in the UK? Because there's been some really great boxers from that area. And actually, it's funny, somebody that's Canadian, but then British and then also Jamaican, Lennox Lewis. He's kind of been in a lot of different spots, but he's also, part of the UK scene. So can you just talk a little bit about, to the average person, like the importance of the sport, like the understanding? Because from my understanding, between the United States, the UK, maybe Mexico and a few other countries, like boxing is really big.
Yeah. Back in, I mean, I don't go back this far, I'm not that old, but in like the 50s, back in the 50s and the 60s, boxing was in schools. It was a way to sort of get discipline. It was a way that people sort of, got rid of their aggression. Then there was a period in England whereby it was very much we had a couple of things like Michael Watson. He had a brain injury. There was also Gerald McClelland, obviously. There was some real tragedies in the sport. And then obviously the PC people are then like, "Oh no, this is dangerous and people are going to get hurt." And then, like I say, they missed the point. So it's no longer in schools. But what tends to happen is if someone's struggling at school, they bring them boxing. Whether they've got anger issues or they're suffering from depression or whatever it is. We get a lot of kids with autism, with ADHD, people that are just not concentrating. They bring them to boxing and it gives them a focus. And that is the part of boxing that is unseen by these people that are like, but you're trying to punch someone in the head. It's like, yeah, but the other person is actually trying to defend themselves as well. So boxing is big. It's nowhere near as big as football. Okay. And whereas it used to be football and boxing, it's very much football is massive. Soccer, as you would call it. Football is massive and boxing has sort of gone down quite a bit. If you open a newspaper, you probably have 8 pages of football and a little section like that on boxing now. So it's not as big as it was. Obviously, you've got the MMA as well now. I mean, with MMA, I like the stand-up stuff. I like it when they're punching each other in the head and body. So that's kind of boxing. I don't mind it when they're standing up and they're kicking. I'm not that keen when they go to the floor. I know that it's super skillful. I understand that, but to me, it's just boring to watch because I don't know what I'm looking at really. Whereas people will say, no, that's beautiful because you can see what they're doing with their arms, and I get that. I don't like the hammer fist. I hate that. I just think it's not sport. I just think let the guy up and then let's fight again. So for me, there's no purer sport than boxing. I think boxing is just so positive for everyone. And with my channel, I'm just happy that people can sort of get better boxing equipment to help them on their boxing journey. You see people, you've got pros, they haven't even got any hand wraps. It's like, what are you doing? At some point, you've got to protect your tools, you've got to protect your head, you've got to protect your... I mean, the amount of people that don't wear a groin guard, to this day, astounds me when they're sparring without a groin guard. And I've had people that have been full on smack below the belt. And then I'll say, where's your groin guard? And they'll say, it's in my bag. And it's like, there's nothing worse than having the protective gear and it being in your bag.
I'm just thinking about the hand wraps thing that you're bringing up because in Nova Scotia we have a pro, Ryan Ruzicki, who had fought against Oscar Rivas for that Bridgerweight title title fight, and it was a big fight. But he doesn't train with hand wraps, and then there's like pictures like with the blood in his hands and everything like that. And I mean, I guess for him, he's trying to be like Jack Dempsey and some of the old time boxers, but certainly like we have with our equipment and how it's evolved, we've really been able to not only protect ourselves, protect our hands, the money makers, but we're also able to protect our sparring partners better. We're able to wear headgear that is able to try and minimize some of the cuts and other things and headbutts and
I mean, when it comes to sparring, obviously being an amateur coach, it's about safety, it's about them learning, it's about them training. There is a place for hard sparring, and that's fine. But if you're at a gym and hard sparring is happening all the time, so basically people are just fighting, then that's not learning, that's survival. So, there's a place for hard sparring, but the majority of sparring needs to be limiting of the power, maybe 70%, and people able to try stuff without getting knocked out. Because let's be honest, if me and you started sparring and I knocked you out in round 1, or you knocked me out in round 1, we haven't got a sparring partner for the rest of the hour. So you're not really learning anything.
And you might not have a sparring partner for a couple months if you try to follow the official guidelines going with post-concussive things.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's obviously in America with the NFL and stuff, the concussions and stuff, and the CTE, it is a lot more sort of awareness of it. Mm-hmm. Amateur is different from professional as well. And, even that, I know people, they class the two exactly the same, and they're not exactly the same. One is an area where novices are learning their trade, and one is where they're getting paid because they've reached a good enough standard to be paid for people to go and watch. And I do think, like sometimes I'll put myself on there, and again, people forget how big I am. I'm 6'4", 100 kg. I'm not going to be as fast as Lomachenko. It's just not going to happen. I'm a big guy. But also, I'll sort of put some of the amateur boxers on. And you do get people commenting, oh, they're doing this wrong. Oh, they're doing that wrong. They're learning their trade. You know, they're not Canelo. You know, they've probably had 1 or 2 fights, if that. And they're helping me to show that the process, that I do test all the gear, and that I'm not just sitting there at the desk saying, you know, I'm taking a pair of gloves out of a packet and going, right, I think this or this, which would be ridiculous. Nobody could think that I could do that, surely to goodness. But, you know, ultimately, I test everything. And the guys at the gym, they help me with that testing. So if I've got a pair of gloves and I'm thinking, right, I'm a bit concerned about the durability, I'll give it to that 110 kg lad and I'll say, whack that bag for 12 rounds. And they whack the bag. And the testing period is vital for me to come to the score for durability. And also what I think is going to happen, because within a few rounds, I had a pair of gloves yesterday where the lining started to move on the inside of the glove just after a few rounds. So I can kind of tell that that's not going to be great after 6 months, 12 months or 18 months worth of use, just from the initial testing period. I mean, people could say, well, why don't you test for 2 years before you do a video? You know, people want to see the new gear. You know, if I turn around and said, yeah, there's these new gloves that are just out, you want to see them, and I'll turn around and say, right, okay, that video is going to be up in 2 years' time. It's not going to work, is it?
There's going to be a new glove or a new shoe.
There's going to be new gloves, and let's be honest, there'll be other reviewers that perhaps don't even have a testing process that will get them out of the packet and will show them, and they've got a video, and they haven't really got a proper review. In saying that, I think the standard of the reviewers that are out there is high. I really do think if you look at 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and what boxing equipment reviews were there to what there is now, there's a massive step up. And I think that will get better. You've also got a lot of people with different personalities, which again all adds to the mix of when people come in, you know, and they'll like that reviewer, they might like me, they might like that reviewer. And I think what they need to do is to sort of have a look at them all. Have a look at them all, because they can take bits from everyone. Yeah, they'll have the favourites. Yeah, they might have one that they don't like. But, you know, I wouldn't say there's anybody out there that I think, oh, my God, they're absolutely awful, especially amongst the ones that have got, you know, over 1,000 subscribers, say.
And I don't want you to necessarily shed any light on any manufacturers or whatnot, because we were talking about kind of the overall, the professional process that you go about. But certainly something that was brought up when I talked with Donardo was about how there are a lot of manufacturers that get their gloves from Pakistan specifically.
Yes.
And they basically are just branding, you know, maybe putting, you know, the emblem or the logo and maybe some color schemes and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about that part of the manufacturing for equipment? Like, is there a lot of companies that are getting their equipment from the same suppliers and maybe fooling consumers a little bit as far as the quality of the make?
What people, I think, don't realize is in Pakistan, now I always get pulled up on my pronunciation, but there's a place called Sialkot or Sialkot. People will comment it below to say you've got that totally wrong, but it's this place, and I think from the sound of it, it was like set up by the British Empire as like a manufacturing place for leather goods. So you've got there footballs, cricket balls, boxing gloves, and they've got like a lot of factories in this one place. It's like the epicenter of where I would probably say 90% of the gloves are made in this place. And people don't realise, because obviously the brands are from different places. You have got like Donardo, he's made in Italy. You've got Fly, they're made in England. You've got Rocket, they're made in France. You've got 1v1, they're made in America. You've got Cleto Reyes, they're made in Mexico, and you've got others that are made in Mexico. But there's a tremendous amount of companies, as Donardo has said there, that just go across and they just put a logo on a standard glove, or they copy features of say, Rival or other manufacturers. And I am really pushing back. And I'm not sure how many other reviewers push back as much as I do, because I will go back to the brands and say, I can't review that. That's a direct copy of Rival's gloves. And Rival watch my channel. So, you know, it's difficult because the copiers are getting better and better. I mean, when I was a kid, you could have some made in Great Britain soldiers that was painted and they were absolutely mint. They were brilliant. And then you could have some made in Hong Kong soldiers where there was bits of plastic stuck and they were rubbish. There was no, that one was there and that one was there. The problem is now is the copiers are getting very, very close to what the brands are doing. And also what they're doing is they're selling it for a fraction of the price. So for me, I'm looking for companies. I acknowledge that they are copying. I acknowledge that some people can't afford a pair of Winning for you know, £400, and they can afford a pair of these Pakistan gloves that are £50. They're not as good as Winning, but the people can afford them. I understand that. But I push back massively to a lot of companies to say, okay, you've copied that glove, you've copied that glove. What are you going to come out with that is original? And some companies can come out with original stuff and some companies can't. But again, it's the whole copying thing. It happens in everything. You know, my mom used to put the washing out outside and the next door neighbour would put her washing out outside. You know, people naturally, if they haven't got the ideas themselves, the only thing they can do is copy. So copying, whether it's copying a podcast, copying a review, copying a pair of gloves, it will happen. And you just got to, I did a video which was called Innovators and Copiers, where I basically called out the copiers and said, come on now, do your own thing. And I gave credit to the innovators. But again, I'm not the patent police. You know, if a company's really got a problem with another company copying something, then they should enforce their patent. You know, it's not up to me to do that. And I do think that I am held, I think out of all the reviewers, people hold me to a higher standard. And I don't know whether that's because I'm a bit older. I don't know whether that's because I'm English, but I think that they hold me to a higher standard. Other people can review things and not be challenged. And then I review it and it's like, I can't believe you've reviewed that. That's a copy. And it's like, yeah, but yeah, it's not my job. It's not my job. What I'm doing is I'm highlighting what's on whole of market. And I'm trying to show people the differences between that glove and then give them the option of whether or not to buy that thing.
So there are some people that watch your videos and they're kind of like the copy police and will try to be like, you know, this is a copy and that.
Yeah, I mean, so say for example, and I'll use Rival because Rival is a very innovative brand. And they've got some real features that are very bespoke to them, and people, lots of companies try and copy them. And the thing is, it is frustrating for them. I totally get that. And they will have patents in place to enforce some of it, and they'll not have patents in place to enforce other bits. So there's a compliment in there, but it is annoying, and I do get that. But when it comes to it, how are you going to stop it?
It's a very hard thing to stop. I mean, oh, sorry.
No, go on.
Okay. Yeah. What you commented on. I mean, what can you really do? If you have patents and the patents are still not stopping people. And I mean, especially when you get people from different countries that are doing it. I mean, it's hard to. It's one thing to enforce a patent in you know, originating country, but then worldwide, can't imagine how hard it is.
And some countries, their whole they have got a copying culture. It's what they do. So it's kind of to expect them not to do that when they have got a copying culture and they're totally happy with that copying culture. It is difficult. But yeah, I mean, only great things will get copied. So there is a compliment there.
So one of your most popular videos I would like to talk about. a video about the very infamous Tyson Fury cheating or the glove controversy. You got 1 million views on that.
Yes.
Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about when you put that video out, kind of the reception and how you dealt with it? Because I know it was like a very divided topic. People have their own opinions about the gloves with Tyson, but
100%.
can you just talk a little bit about, sorry, can you talk a little bit about when it came out, the reception and maybe how you've dealt with some of maybe the negative and the positive?
100%. When I did the video, there was a few videos that was Wilder fans, and Wilder's fan base, they were putting out these videos, and they were putting out things as fact, with all fancy sort of editing, but they were fundamentally wrong in what they were saying in certain circumstances. So there was one guy that said Tyson Fury's hand was in the glove, and clearly you could see it was his knuckle because the palm of the hand is covered in gauze. Well, that's fundamentally wrong, because if you look, most times the palm on a professional wrap is open, so you can see the palm. So I did the video just because there was people spouting things that was totally untrue as fact. And because I know about boxing gloves, I thought, well, I'll just step in and I'll give my opinion. And I did the video, and straight away, the algorithm or whatever grabbed hold of it and just shot it up. So I was getting up in the morning, and there was like 36,000 views after the first morning or something. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening here? And the comments, I was getting loads and loads of comments, because there was people, Wilder fans, that thought because of their channels that was saying he was punching through the front of his glove with his fist in the wrist, they totally believed that. And I was saying that that's not what happened. So they was attacking me. So I was the devil, I was a liar, I was the cheater, I was Fury's cousin. I had that said a few times. Fury's brother, the white, no. And it did get very racial at times, where they would almost saying I was defending Tyson Fury because of his colour of his skin and the colour of my skin. But to be honest, my favourite heavyweight boxer is Anthony Joshua. So, it's got nothing to do with the colour of my skin. And if it was reversed and it was Wilder, I'd have said exactly the same. But unfortunately, there is a real sort of narrative that was running underneath that fight that when I did the video, I wasn't aware of. It really, for some people, was a black and white thing. And for me, it wasn't. It was about boxing gloves. It was about two boxers. So I sort of got caught in the storm. The comments, I mean, if you go into the comments now, I tried to reason with so many people, and they were saying his fist was in the wrist, but there's footage where he's opening and closing his hand, so his fist couldn't have been in the wrist. But you can show people that, but people will only see what they want to see, and it's very difficult once somebody's got something in their head to change that viewpoint. It was a massive video for me. I had a little bit at first when I was getting all the abuse. I was literally thinking, oh my God, I don't do the channel for this. I only put the video out to help, to clear up the situation. I did think a couple of times, because it was getting really sort of aggressive, I did think about taking the video down. And then I thought, well, no, let's see what happens. And COVID hit. And then what happened was there was no really anything else in boxing to talk about for about a year. And this just ran and ran and ran. And people was doing more videos, super chats. These sort of Wilder channels were doing super chats where they were still creating this controversy. And it was like, so I did some more videos to back that back. And all it is people that don't know boxing and don't know boxing gloves and don't understand. And then they're going out and giving messages as fact that it's not true. And I really struggled with that, because all I was trying to do was to create the balance of truth.
And like, because I've watched like a lot of videos talking about it, and I watched your video, and I think you did a really good job. And I think you're, like I said, in every video that you do, you're very professional. You don't really present things as fact. It's always your opinion and, your experience. And of course you do have experience. I mean, you're a former amateur boxer, amateur boxing coach. And that whole, because I don't even think that fight after had so many controversies about the gloves, about the counting, and how people thought that Tyson was given an extra count or extra seconds to get up and everything that. And the draw was controversial.
Yeah, egg white in the glove, spiked water. I mean, there was just so much that was going on and so much to unpack. I mean, I went on other people's channels and spoke about it, and I did enjoy it really, because I felt like I was in a very privileged position because I knew the facts and I know about the glove checking and what the gloves were and all this. You had channels saying, oh, he was using horsehair glove and they've been banned. It's total nonsense. Horsehair gloves are made by most manufacturers. They're not banned. You know what I mean? And then they were saying, oh, yeah, well, these are the same
banned
gloves.
When you're against Mayweather, I think.
Yeah, Mayweather didn't want them to be used, so he paid a lot of money for Maidana not to use them. Yes. So it's not that they were banned. No. Floyd Mayweather paid hundreds of thousands of pounds for the other guy to wear another pair of gloves, because he could have said, no, I'm not accepting that money, I'm going to wear them. But Floyd Mayweather, he was the A side. He was sort of dictating the terms. Probably would have said, "I'm not fighting you without." Is there much padding in horsehair gloves? Absolutely not. But the idea, and I think people miss the point here, is professional boxing is not like amateur boxing. Amateur boxing is to protect the people because they're learning. Professional boxing is to cause damage and knockouts and excitement. And if, let's be honest, if we put all of the professional boxers in massive gloves and there was no cuts and there was no damaging shots and there was no knockdowns and knockouts, well, pretty boring sport it would be. So, the horsehair gloves and why they're liked by a lot of professionals is because you've got some damage going on when you're using them. Some people can't use them because they've got fragile hands. Deontay Wilder used to use horsehair gloves. Then he had operations on his hands. He then wears a more protective glove. And that was his problem in the third fight, because his team was saying, well, we'll put Wilder in the same horsehair gloves as Tyson Fury. Well, that would be okay if Wilder hadn't had so many operations on his hands. So what happens is the fight happens, he wears horsehair gloves, he damages his hands, and it affects his performance because his team have put him in a pair of unsuitable gloves for their fighter. I mean, I would never, if somebody said to me, right, you're advising Deontay Wilder of what gloves to wear, he would never, ever be in horsehair gloves. He's got a history of hand problems, same with Floyd Mayweather. So you can't put those people in horsehair gloves. Tyson Fury, his hands are about this big. He's probably been hitting things without hand wraps on for years and years. And he's got strong hands, so he can wear, without damaging his hands, he can wear them, and some fighters can.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you commented on that, because I think it does have a lot of takeaways, because anybody listening, it doesn't have to be about, boxing, but any endeavor that you do, because really this channel that you're doing is an endeavor, or like a business that you have going on. I know you said that you don't get paid by the reviewers, but you put a lot of time, effort, work into it. And when you get something like a video that just pops and blows up, it can probably, as you said, because there was a time you were saying that you thought about maybe taking off the video, it can be overwhelming. So I'm glad that you were able to kind of let the storm calm down and be able to have those conversations with those other channels.
I reckon at one point I was probably the second most hated white man in America. Next after, I think Donald Trump probably would have beat me at the time.
Really?
But yeah, it went mental. It went mental. And obviously, for somebody that starts a channel just to help people, and then you're receiving all this abuse, calling you all the names under the sun, and you're like, I didn't start the channel for this. I literally started to help people, and now I'm under this barrage of an attack. And unfortunately, there was lots of channels that was feeding that, and I didn't realise that that was going on. And they were making it into a race thing, and for me, it never was. Never is. Not even now. You know, boxing isn't about race to me. You know, my favourite fighters, a lot of them are black guys. So you know, and as I said earlier, boxing is such an inclusive sport. Then I just don't get where they're coming from, but obviously they've got different agendas going on.
Okay, moving the topic now, and I would really like to get into this. Can you just talk a little bit about the beginnings? How did you get involved with boxing? Because I know whenever you introduce yourself, you talk about being an amateur boxer, but we don't really get a glimpse into that. Can you talk a little bit about your amateur boxing?
But what happened was I was good at football. I was good at soccer. I was good at football. And then I was very good at being a grass hockey goalkeeper. So what happened is I come to the sport late. Even though I watched the sport from 6 years old, my granddad was a boxer and I used to go and read his boxing books. And I followed the sport from 6 years old, and I really did study the sport, love the sport. But because I was good at other sports, kind of a season goes on, another season, and then before you know it, a lot of time has gone. Now, at the time when I started boxing, I was 30 when I first walked into a boxing gym.
Okay.
And at the time, you couldn't fight past 32 as an amateur boxer.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I trained hard, got to the stage where I could have a fight. I went to an amateur boxing show, and at the time I was 15 stone 2. Now, I went and watched, that was super heavyweight. And I watched these two guys who were naturally 17 and a half stone, hitting lumps out of each other. And I thought to myself, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to diet down to 14 stone 1, 14.4 it was, which was the heavyweight limit. So obviously that took time as well to get down from 15.2, avoid Jurassic Park with all them big, massive dinosaurs, and get down into, because even though I'm a tall guy, I'm not a naturally 17 and a half stone guy. So I got down at amateur fight at heavyweight, won it, said to my coach, right, come on, I want another fight. He says, you're too old. I'd run out of time. And then from then I had just about a period of about 10 years where I sparred and sparred and sparred because I needed to learn the trade. And I learnt it by trying stuff in sparring. At one stage, I was doing the Philly shell. I mean, I've tried all the different styles in sparring to try and find out what works. And that's how I managed to get into the coaching. So great thing for me now is I see people that have got talent and they're not grasping the opportunities. And I'll say to them, look, don't do what I did. I left it too late. And people need to, when there's an opportunity, they need to go for it. Because ultimately, if they go, oh, well, I'll do it in 6 months' time, I'll do it next year. Before you know it, the years have gone past and their opportunity has passed. I love sparring. I still spar to this day to less degree level, but I do love the sparring and the contact. But I get great satisfaction from the coaching. The coaching, for me, you know, if I can sort of train somebody up from that level, get them to there, and they're winning fights, it is an amazing thing. I'd actually say I get more satisfaction from that than my own sort of boxing, because you're making a difference to someone else's life. And all amateur coaches and probably professional coaches will say the same. There is a great satisfaction in having a positive influence on someone else. So, yeah, it's kind of, you know, I would hate for people to not take those opportunities, especially the last couple of years where people haven't been able to fight because of COVID. And that's 2 years out of someone's career, 2 years that they're never going to get back. And I would just say, if you get the opportunity, win or lose, go for it. I think there's too many people looking at Instagram, looking at professional boxers, looking at Lomachenko, looking at Floyd Mayweather, and thinking, I've got to go 200 amateur contests with no losses. Well, that's just simply not the case. If you've got 50-50 record in amateur, you've got a good record, to be fair, because there's a lot of poor decisions that go on. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. There's a lot of factors involved. You know, you might be matched with somebody that is actually a bit too good for you. They do try and match them up fairly, but, you know, there's always a time where someone just is out of their depth a little bit, so they'll pick up a loss there. But yeah, I love the sport. I've loved it since I was 6 years old. I've studied it since then. I was just good at other sports that was stopping me getting to the stage. I could be here now where I never even entered a boxing gym. It was that sort of, when I was sort of 30, it was right, you've got to do it now or it's never going to happen. And what happened is, since obviously with the channel and the coaching, and my job now is to teach people boxing. All of that would not have come if I hadn't have just gone for it when I was 30 years old.
I'm seeing there's a trend, because correct me if I'm wrong, and I know Katie Taylor is from Ireland.
Yeah.
Was she also a footballer at the beginning of her athletics?
I believe she was very good. Yeah, I believe she was very good at football.
And Conor McGregor, the Irish MMA fighter, similar story. And I suppose, as you were talking earlier about kind of how earlier boxing and football was kind of similar in the UK, and then it kind of boxing got a little bit lower in football. Like football, there's a lot of footballers that turn to boxing, it would seem.
Yeah, football is massive in the UK. It just is with the Premier League. I used to follow football, you know, religiously. I could barely name 3 players in the England team now, because whenever I watch sport, I'm watching boxing now. You know, I've lost the love for football. But there was a time when I was training for football 6-7 days a week, and I was playing probably 2 or 3 games in that week. I was really into it. And then when I started playing hockey, and I was a hockey goalkeeper, I was very good at that as well. And so, again, as I say, years go fast, and people don't realise how fast those years go. And before you know it, you look back and you go, "Oh my God, you know, where did that 10 years go?"
And I wanted to talk and shine some light, because I know you're a coach at Telford Amateur Boxing Club, and I wanted to shine a little bit of a light on some of your amateurs. Are you able to talk about some of the amateurs that you have at the gym? Some people to look forward to in the future. I know Mary Kate, but can you talk a little bit about just some of your fighters? No pressure on favoritism, but yeah.
We have got a great set of boxers, and there's a lot of more coming up together. We've got a guy called Jamie, and we call him the Body Snatcher, and he's a great. We call him the blueprint. He's the blueprint of what we want the rest of the amateur boxers to follow, because he trains religiously. He's always on weight. We offer him a fight. He's always up for a fight. His attitude is fantastic. He's a fantastic young lad. He's had his losses, he's had his wins, he's come back from his losses, he doesn't quit, he keeps going, you know, and that is amazing. And the others, we always say, look up to him, follow what he's doing, because he's doing it right. The amount of people that must lose an amateur fight and then quit, I mean, it's ridiculous, but they might think, oh, this is not for me. What a shame, because if they just push through, then they get levels above. And then, like with Jamie is just a class act. Mary Kate, she's one for the future. Obviously, there's a lot more women coming into the sport, which I think is an amazing thing. What you find with girls is girls are very good with the technique. A lot of lads come in and they just want to show you how powerful they are. And it's very difficult, because they're trying to show you how hard they can hit. It's very difficult for them to get the technical side, because they just ultimately want to show you that they've got a hard punch. Where the girls are more concerned with the technique, they can get the technique, and then their punch can get harder. So I love having girls in the sport. I think it's a great addition to the gym. There's a guy called Ryan at the gym. He's a heavyweight. Again, another one that is, you know, these guys are not going out. They're training hard. They're on weight. It's so many. We got a lad called Carlos. He recently fought for us. He's got a 50-50 record. He's only 20. He's had like 20 fights, I think he's had now. And, you know, he's a really great guy. And these are high standard boxers in amateur. And we've got some really high hopes for a lot of them. And I feature some of them on the channel. As I say, the hardest thing for me is when they get criticised, because I don't put them on the channel for them to get criticised. I put them on the channel so that people can see that the equipment is being tested. Unfortunately, if you was to look at an amateur boxer and then you've been watching Canelo or Triple G, of course the amateur boxer is not going to be anywhere near as good as them. So I think people need to sort of give the head a little bit of a wobble sometimes, because these are actual human beings at the end of these comments. And I think sometimes they're there on the keyboard. Bearing in mind, I would probably put like loads of these people in with these guys and they wouldn't last around. But, you know, that is the life of keyboard warriors. They are out there and, you know, and they're criticising professionals. You know, Lomachenko lost and suddenly he was rubbish. Lomachenko's not rubbish. Lomachenko is class. And for anybody to turn around and say, oh, he's lost, he's rubbish, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's again touching on something that like I've talked about with you privately, like Teddy Atlas talks about you know, the people on the keyboard warriors that are in their grandma's basement and they're soiling their underpants and stuff. And it's like the people that take the time to bring people down and try to make those negative comments. It's like you said to me, it's 99% positive with the 1%, the 1% that's like that. But I always, whenever I received that kind of feedback, I had like, I'll give you a really good example. I made this video. I was hitting a boxing bag. I was trying to do some motivational things. And there's this guy saying I think he was from Mexico or something. He's like, I would never take advice from somebody wearing a mask hitting a boxing bag. And I just looked at it and I kind of laughed. Because this was like one of the first like bad comments I've ever received. And I was like, you know what? Like, I always wonder to myself, what are these people going through? Like, I don't want to get mad. I want to know more about their situation, why their focus is in this and not other things. I mean, because life is so short. We should all be, you know, spreading positivity.
And also, if you're watching something and you really don't like it, then there's so much other that you could watch.
Just turn it off.
I would say, just turn it off. Just, you know, whether it's on your phone or on the television, just turn it off and move on to something you want to. But you know, people go to great lengths to make someone else feel bad, and then they probably move on to someone else. But as I say, I mean, the majority of people get what I'm trying to do. The positivity, the community, I absolutely love it. And when you're in social media, you are putting yourself out there to a certain extent. And as I say, you know, there will be people that will take shots. It does hurt. It does hurt because you're like, well, where's that come from? I'll tell you, the first troll comment that I ever had was when in the days when I never used to show my head. And obviously it was just my hands. And somebody said, oh, he's not going to be able to hit anything with them hands, or his hands would break with. And I'm thinking, the only thing that he can see is my chest and my hands. And he's actually come out with a comment about my hands. And it's like, it's just weird. It's just whatever makes these people happy.
Exactly. And I know with my free time, like I try to put it towards other things than that. But I mean, hey, everybody's got, you know, do whatever you want. Just wanted to say, Simon, we're getting close to time. Usually towards the end, I just give an opportunity for my guests to kind of reach out to everybody. I know, you know, the channel is Fit2Box channel on YouTube, and I know on Instagram it's Fit2Box channel. Of course, there's the Telford Amateur Boxing Club as well, that's on Instagram that you can follow. Is there any more social media links or any upcoming things that you wanted to share? The platform's yours.
Yeah, my website as well is fit2boxchannel.com, and on there I've got links to the videos. I've got my ratings on there where it's sort of, because people a lot of the times they'll say, what's better, that glove or that glove? And I did the website so people could go on and actually have a look and see what I think. But a lot of people do want sort of that instant sort of, I don't want to look for it, I want you to tell me. And the same when people say, they'll ask a question. And as your platform gets more busy, you try and answer them all. But there does come a point where your channel is so busy that you haven't actually physically got time to answer the questions, even though you would love to. So what you'll do, and what I started to do was, okay, well, if you watch this video, then the answer is there for you. But they don't want that. They want you to type it out. But if you've got so many other comments to do, it is difficult to do. So when that happens, you know, it's not perhaps the creator sort of trying to get a view, because a view would probably earn the person about 0.0% of a penny. So it's not the person trying to get a view. It's basically you've asked a question about that, and the easiest way to explain it to you is I did a video on it. So if you watch that video, you'll get your answer, because I'm not the fastest at typing. It'd probably take me half an hour to type what I wanted to type, you know. So, and that's when it comes to the comments as well. As your channel grows, it's not as easy to answer everyone, even though you would love to. But I have messages through several platforms as well. Instagram, I have messages through YouTube. And the interaction, there's a lot of people out there that love gloves and equipment, and I do as well. And it's great to see that so many people are now getting involved in the boxing equipment review sort of world, because I think it is valuable.
Yeah, and I never even commented on this earlier, but one of the earlier guests I had, I believe it was episode 4, Stacia the Natural, Stacia the Natural Subtles. Do you know her?
No.
Okay, she does.
I will listen to the podcast after this.
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, so she also has, like, she's an amateur, and then some of her earlier videos, more so than now, were reviews as well, and so it was interesting too that time, because I had watched some of her videos, and that was what also, like, a combination of you, Stacia, and Carlos have with C Squared Boxing have all been basically encompassing all my purchases. You know, when I am gonna buy something new, I'm like, okay, what do they say? What do they say?
Yeah.
What do they say? Okay, buy.
So. Yeah, 100%. And it is fine. It is fine to like Fit2Box and to like C Squared. It is fine,
of course,
because we are very different personalities. We're totally different size, and mainly what happens is most people will watch both, which is great. You know, there's no beef between me and Carlo, because, you know, we're growing a community, and Carlo's doing some great stuff over there. I mean, the output of his videos that he's doing great. And the more people that are sort of coming into this little small dark corner of YouTube, whether I do well, whether he does well, whether the other reviewers do well, it's all good. It's all good. And if you like Carlo, that means it doesn't mean that you have to hate me, or vice versa. If you like me, I wouldn't expect you to hate Carlo. We're both doing our thing, and, you know, he's been doing it a long time. I've been doing it 6 years, and we're both trying to help people.
With Carlo, I really look at his shoe reviews, because we both have wide feet, so it's a matter of, like, the reviewer, like, you got to match the reviewer sometimes with, like, how is your hands, how is your feet, how is your build.
I haven't got wide feet, I've got perfect feet, so I wouldn't be able to help you.
Yes, of course. Hey, Simon, I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said earlier on, you've given me a lot of tidbits with, you know, the consistency, you know, being a hard worker, being a diligent worker. You've helped me a lot behind the scenes, and I'm also really glad that we're able to get you on, get some insight into your channel, you know, your process, how boxing has helped you, how you've enjoyed helping others with boxing at the Telford Boxing Club. So I really appreciate you coming on. It was a wonderful conversation.
No problem. If I can just finish on something I did send through to you. And I think especially in these sort of social media times where everyone appears like this sort of lifestyle that's perfect. You know, a lot of people do think that money equals happiness, and money doesn't equal happiness. Being nice to people can bring you so much joy, and I just think that if the world is kinder to each other, you know, I just think that's the way forward. You know, when I was in the bank, there was plenty of people that was rich that was unhappy, and I used to know a lot of people that hadn't got much money, and they were happy people. And so, you know, for me, you know, I'm not a rich guy, but I am happy, and I think everyone is aiming for happiness. So you don't need a Lamborghini to be happy.
Yeah, I mean Tyson Fury on ahead of his Dylan White fight, he was on Ariel Helwani's show. He's talking about how after this fight, he's gonna have about 150 mil cleared in his bank. He talked about you know, fighters in the past, even fighters currently, how a lot of fighters they spend all their money, they're still unhappy. He's planning on only spending about 10% of that 150 million, so 15 million in his lifetime, and he doesn't. He's somebody that I look up to as well because of the boxing side of it. But if Tyson Fury is making all this money and he's telling his fans, okay, you know, money isn't everything, I think that's powerful.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You know, I think, especially when I said about sort of my son, a lot of it is gratitude, is being grateful for what you've got. And there's a lot of people out there, especially during the COVID period and all the lockdowns and stuff. And there's a lot of sort of people that are suffering mental illness and really suffering bad. And, you know, just be nice to people is the biggest message I would say to people, because ultimately you don't know what them people are going through.
Yeah, and I believe myself, maybe you agree as well. Boxing, getting involved with boxing, the fitness side of it, you know, having that as a regular part of your routine, it can really help with those mental battles that we're having.
100%. We see it all the time in the gym. I can see people at the gym that are probably never going to box, but boxing has saved them.
Yeah, and that's why anybody listening, you're going through a hard time, you've started boxing or think about boxing, give it a shot, because you never know, you might find it filling you know, a void, it helping provide some discipline, some, you know, the hard work about it, and the fitness aspects can really give you some positive mental
mental. And you don't know, when I walked into that boxing gym, I didn't know that it was going to lead to me having like a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? It can go in so many different ways. And I have met so many great people, whether they're viewers or when I'm interacting with the brands or boxers that I've interviewed. You meet so many great people on this kind of journey that you're on. And so I'm not like thinking, right, okay, I want to get to 1 million subscribers. I'm just enjoying the journey, because it is great. And sometimes I think people forget that to enjoy the journey while they're striving to get somewhere, and they're not enjoying the process. And I'm loving the process. Doing stuff like this is, to me, I was ace.
Yeah, and again, it was a crazy experience when we first started talking. I'm like, oh no, he's not a YouTube video. I can't press pause. You know, I can't press pause, make a coffee, and come back. And you know, he's here. I gotta. Whoa.
You could have done. You could have just said pause. I would have gone.
Yeah. So you're really good at that. Hey, Simon, again, it's been an honor. It's a privilege having you on. Please keep making these awesome videos. You know, you put that you're one of the #1 boxing review websites in the world, and I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that what you're doing is making a positive impact on the community, as far as giving them the right gear, you know, the protective equipment that they need to protect themselves and their partners, and to progress in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a former #1, which is pretty good, to be fair. So yeah, you know, Carlos overtook me, but that's all good.
Was that a tear? Was that a tear there?
That's all good. That's all good. The thing is, we're both going together. Yes. As I say, that's great. And a bit like Lennox Lewis, I'm a former #1.
former number one. I'm glad that you guys have that relationship though, where you're able to, you both respect each other, and it's good like that, because you guys are both good guys, and again, I really appreciate you coming on, and stay safe, stay positive. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Good energy.
absolutely. Thank you ever so much. Cheers, Matthew.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I know that there was quite a few different things that we have talked about. Of course, we talked about sort of the origin and the genesis of the Fit2Box YouTube channel. We talked about Telford Boxing, the amateur boxing club that Simon coaches at. Talked about some of his fighters. And more so than that, we also talked about some really good things about anybody that's interested in starting a business, content creation, or social media, about handling negativity, and continuing to be positive, and a lot of tidbits that I really enjoyed listening to, and I hope you did too. And lastly, if you're listening to this podcast, I strongly recommend that you do the following: that you go on your preferred platform and subscribe. And so that way, when a new episode is released, you will be the first person to know about that. And like always, guys, I hope you have a good rest of your day, whatever time you're listening to. Stay safe, and see you on the flip side.